तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से तवाफ मैंने किया ही सही मरवाही, तवाफ मैंने किया ही सही मरवाही, जो मैंने मेरा किया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से मुझे गिराने पे हासिद तुले हुए थे मगर, मुझे गिराने पे हासिद तुले हुए थे मगर, मैं दुश्मनों से बचा माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से पसंद है इसमें उजागर का कुछ जमाल नहीं, पसंद है इसमें उजागर का कुछ जमाल नहीं, उरूज से को मिला माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से माँ की दुआ जन्नत की माँ की दुआ, जन्नत की माँ की दुआ, जन्नत की माँ की दुआ, जन्नत की खुदा ने मुझको दिया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं। Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermaritzburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus, Sacoor, and I will be in your company for the next 2 hours. I will be interviewing our guest shortly. Today, the date is the 19th of Safar 1447 AH, equivalent to the 13th of August 2025. On tonight's show, I have quite a packed lineup of esteemed guests. My first subject is we're going to chat on the impact of the Provincial Government of National Unity on service delivery in KZN, with particular reference to the public works and infrastructure portfolio. We're also going to chat about global tensions, the Islamic perspective, and we're going to talk about some of the allegations made by MKHWANAZI on SAPS maladministration and the reaction, because we know there's a commission of inquiry that's been appointed to deal with this aspect, but we're trying to get updates from different individuals. My guest on the studio this evening is MEC Martin MEYER. He is the KZN Public Works and Infrastructure Minister. I also have Mufti Muhammad AKOO. He's from DARUL Newcastle. He will be chatting about global tensions. Also in studio, Shlomo Biko. He's the spokesperson for one of the civic organizations. LENDY SPIRES, she's the deputy organizer. HASSAN MOTALA, economist and asset manager. Samuel Kennedy, political analyst. SUMAYA Khan, chairperson of the United for Palestine, education activist and unionist and educator. So my first guest this evening is a colleague of mine back in the days when I was in council, a very active councillor, then an MP, now an MEC, Minister Martin MEYER. Martin, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. It's a wonderful pleasure.
Martin, it's a pleasure having you live in the studio. I know you have a very busy portfolio and you've been in various portfolios, and I know your modus operandi is let's get the job done. Yep. When you were in council, you always questioned, why it's taking so long. How quickly can we get this matter sorted out? And it was about getting service delivery on the ground. When you became an MP and you joined me in my show, that was the same theme you had. That, listen, I've been appointed by the people and I must now deliver on the people's needs. And notwithstanding the fact that I may belong to the opposition party, I always had service delivery in mind. We are pleased to note that your party has nominated you to be appointed as MEC for KZN Public Works and Infrastructure, and the Provincial Government of National Unity recognized your experience and appointed you in that portfolio. Now, obviously, Martin, over the years, there's been a transition from being a councillor on local government, then being an MP in province, KZN province, and now a minister. So you've moved up the ranks. I want our listeners to hear it from you directly, that from the time you became a councillor, some of the challenges you dealt with on service delivery, from there as an MP in province, different dynamics, but also having linkage with municipalities, and now being the MEC, and we know the enormous challenges. Perhaps you just want to run us through the different phases so that we get a kind of a synopsis of exactly what were your observations in the different phases that you have been involved with. Martin?
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I mean, people said to me the other day that being an MEC must be the hardest job I've ever done. And I said, no, being a ward councillor is actually the hardest job that exists, I think. For 8 years, I was ward councillor for Ward 27. We're actually sitting in Ward 27 right now, which is Morningside, Greyville. And in 2011, when I became a councillor, it was a different metro. Mike Sutcliffe was still the city manager. Jane Khumalo was our mayor. And it was still a functional city. So being a council was actually not that difficult, but it degenerated quite quickly from there, where a council went from representing the people to actually being a service delivery agent, a call center agent, a plumber, electrician, and doing the job that the officials are actually supposed to do. And it became a very, very tough job to do. And I really feel for my colleagues who are still in council because of that. But being a councillor has taught me the most important thing, and that is to always remember who you serve. And that you do serve. You don't, I said earlier today that I get quite upset when people talk about a ruling party. We're not a monarchy, we're a democracy. We've got a governing party. And that's what I learned being on the coal face of service delivery right there. But I also learned that there's a disconnect between the provincial government, the national government, and the local government. So the people on the ground don't necessarily see what does the provincial government do for me. So when I became an MPL, which was in 2019, I always tried to prioritize local government. I managed to convince the party to put me on the COCTA portfolio committee because I'm passionate about local government. And I served on COCTA for a long time. But the challenge there was when you're in opposition, unfortunately, South Africa is still being a maturing democracy. If members of the opposition say something, the governing party just ignores you. They don't listen, even if it's a good idea. They're just not going to do it because it comes from you. And then came the elections, last year's elections, and no one could predict what was going to happen. This tsunami that we call MKP came and made all the predictions totally wrong for KwaZulu-Natal, and the GPU was formed. Now, people should also remember that the the government of provincial unity has a majority of 1 vote in the legislature. So we've got 41 votes on the side of government, 39 on the side of the opposition.
And that's the NFP vote.
And that's the NFP vote, which is, which
So
is also
it's very
interesting.
fluid, and you have to be careful.
Absolutely. So we've got the IFP, we've got 4 members in the cabinet, ANC with 3 members, the DA with 2 members, and then the NFP with their singular member that sits on cabinet.
And the balance is the MK.
Yes, and MK is NK and EFF. EFF has 2 seats, and MK then has their 37 seats, and that's the opposition benches, just 2 parties. And I learned very quickly, opposition is easy, government is hard. I accidentally came across a speech I wrote in 2019 when I served on a Public Works Portfolio Committee, and the speech said the MEC of Public Works must do A, B, C, and D, and I was looking at these things like, okay, I can't do A, I can't do B, C I can maybe do, and I realized that in government you have a different perspective of it.
Correct.
But the same thing remains. So I serve the people of KwaZulu-Natal, and I must always remind myself of that. My office is in Mayville, not far from here. And people ask me, why is your office, if you look out of the window, you see one of the worst informal settlements, and which is Cato
Manor, yes. And that's where all the muggings take place,
yes,
and the smash and grabs.
Absolutely. And people ask me, why don't you move your office? I say, because when I'm here, I'm reminded whose life I'm supposed to improve. So every time I look out of my window, I'm reminded, but these are the people whose lives I'm supposed to improve. That's my job. And in public works, my motto is, 2 things. One is, let's build KZN better. But the second one is, I manage all properties of the province, falls on me. That's 10,800 properties across the province, buildings, open land, schools, clinics. And I have a motto that if it belongs to the public, it must serve the public. Right. And that's what we've been doing for the last year and 2 months.
Now, Martin, obviously, when you became MEC, like any efficient MEC or leader, you obviously got to look at the status of infrastructure. Over the years, there's been a deterioration. And if it belongs to province and linked to the municipality, there's an interaction of sorts, because very often municipalities require buildings and land belonging to province for development. And because I was in the housing fraternity, we used to look for buildings and land to develop housing or to put people temporary until we find alternative premises for them. So when you became MEC, you would have obviously done a status quo report. Obviously, you would have had your predecessors that would have performed at a certain level. So what was your findings or observations when you did the status quo report on the state of infrastructure in KZN? Because we're not only dealing with the Tekwani now. So I think the first thing to also remind your listeners of is that KZN never had a department of infrastructure before. So public works was a much smaller department, just looking after the physical buildings that belongs to the government, and infrastructure was a mishmash that some department did this, other department did something else, and municipalities did their own thing, and it just wasn't working. So when the GPU was formed, it was decided to change the department into public works and infrastructure, and that we now play a overseeing and a coordination role, because some infrastructure, according to the constitution, belongs to municipalities, not the province or the national government, and so forth. But we have a power now to help and assist municipalities with that. And we know that one of the single biggest challenges, complaints people tell you is, water is not running, electricity is not there, the roads are falling apart, and the sewage that flows, everywhere, and not only in Tekwani, across the province. So that's why this department was then formed. So we're not trying, but we are moving the department and repositioning itself to play that role. But one of the first things, and I've told this story quite a few times, I walked on the stage, the premier sworn me in, I walked off, and this well-dressed gentleman came to me and says, "I'm your HOD." I said, "Oh, wonderful to meet you." He says, "Yes, I have to tell you we're broke." And that was a great start to my day and to the year ahead. Then one of the first things I said is, we need to do an audit of what do we own. And I remember the officials were very upset with me. They said, "How can you say that we don't know what we own?" I said, "Well, then the audit will be quick if you know what we own." The audit just finished, and those officials came to me and says, "MEC, you're actually right. We discovered hundreds of properties that the government didn't even know it owned. That plays a direct role also in infrastructure." The third thing was that we had to tackle the matter of the construction mafia, or the extortioners, however you want to call them. And we took a very, very strong stance on that. And then we looked at infrastructure itself, and we said that the problem with municipalities, and especially our rural municipalities, is they just don't have the capability. They don't have the experts. So they have to pay millions and millions to consultants who sit in Joburg and Cape Town, come in for a few hours, charge you R1 million and fly back.
So we've now just signed our MOU with COCTA, so that our Office of Experts, so we have all the engineers, all the architects, all of them within the department. We will now be assisting these municipalities, and we're going to tell, okay, you need to build a new water line. We will send the engineers to do the work for you, no cost. So the municipalities will be saving millions. Because we are saying that while there are free spheres of government, we're still one country, and we have to work as such.
Now, Martin, when you all did this audit, and with the audit, you probably had an assessment of the state of the infrastructure. Like the HOD mentioned, we broke, and he obviously maybe thought he'll scare you because now you got no money. How are you going to do the job?
He's also suspended now.
So obviously he may have realized, and that's what happens in all municipalities from many of our observations, is that the first thing they look at is the budget and how can I basically use this budget to create maladministration, because that seems to be the thinking in a lot of municipalities and provinces. So when you did the audit and you then established the state of those buildings and the infrastructure and the work that is required, which can then lend itself or lead to the budget, what were your findings? Because I read a lot of reports when you started, is then you picked up what we're now talking about. The monies were not spent correctly, and that is a criminal offense, and it's not really something that we can allow. Because if 50% of your budget is spent on maladministration and corruption, then people are not getting value for money, for the rates and taxes they pay, and it's a major problem. So what were your observations, Martin? Because I know it's still early years in your portfolio, but you were not afraid to pick this up and talk about it.
Let me give you a very, very simple example. Before we saw in the GPU, and just after the election, I was in MPL, I was in the legislature, and one of the urinals in the male toilet broke. 2 weeks later, I was the MEC for Public Works, and I saw someone was there fixing it. So I said, this is a good way for me to understand how does this process work, because we manage that building. So I asked the HOD, and he explained to me, we don't have any of our own plumbers anymore. All those posts are vacant, so we have to tender it out. So I asked what was wrong with the toilet. It was clogged, so it just needed to be unblocked. It cost us 10,700 Rand to unclog a toilet. Now that's ridiculous. Shouldn't be charging. It should be.
If you get somebody internally, you can do it with a couple of hundred.
Yes. So then when I dug, I realized they didn't want to fill those posts of plumbers, of electricians and everything, because then I can tender it out, and my friend is getting the tender and I'm getting the kickback as the official. So it's that type of, even on the most simplest of levels, those are the type of things that we had to deal with. We found officials that had 4 cell phones paid for by the department. Now, why would an official need 4 cell phones? You need 1 cell phone. So we just started with that first. Cut back the waste so that the money goes where it's supposed to go.
Yes.
On the infrastructure, we also realized that because no one was playing an overseeing role, that it was a mishmash. So everybody was doing their little bit, and it wasn't talking to each other, wasn't connecting. So that's where we're busy with now. And I'll give you another good example. Renewable energy. KZN doesn't have renewable energy. Yet we are a province that is perfectly situated for it. Newcastle is great for solar power. Richards Bay and Klatuze is great for wind power, for instance. But we haven't moved forward because it was left to various different departments to do. And now as public infrastructure, we're saying, no, let us now oversee this and move forward on this, because we want to foresee, and I know I get in trouble as a DA member for bringing up the Western Cape, but if we have load shedding, if we're all on stage 4, the Western Cape's only on stage 2 because they have renewable energy. They can take that hit, and we're supposed to do the same. And then the last thing about the properties is I said that we must look at which properties are underutilized and unutilized. And we own, in Durban, you mentioned about buildings for human settlements. In Durban, there's an old hotel that belonged to this department, the Palm Beach Hotel on the beachfront. Now, why would the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure own an empty hotel? We then negotiated. eThekwini took that building over, and that's going to be a temporary housing facility for people in storms, when floods hit, and that building is going to be used for that. We've just put 88 properties on the market, but I also must qualify this. That doesn't mean we're taking the highest bidder. We're saying to communities, come with a proposal. So let's say an organization like yours says, we want to build a women's shelter on this piece of land that belongs to Public Works in the market. So you're not offering us the same amount as someone who wants to build a apartment block there, but we're going to say, no, this community actually needs a women's shelter. So we're going to take your offer, not the one that's R1 million more, because it must serve the public. And that's the type of things that we're now looking at making sure that every property, we just signed an MOU with agriculture, that all our empty pieces of land will become food gardens. until we need them for something else, because it must serve the public.
Now, Martin, in terms of your findings on the state of the infrastructure, you mentioned, the water infrastructure is shot, the sewer infrastructure is shot, and now these are all municipal functions.
Yeah.
Now, you're correct in saying that the relationship between national, provincial, and local government has to be effective. Because when we were in human settlements, I know very often that to approach province, the Minister of sort of infrastructure or public works, it was a mission to get the building allocated. Sometimes it takes 2 years, and by then your requirement has been exhausted.
Yeah.
Your HOD then, who is now suspended, indicated he's broke. You obviously would have contacted Treasury to find out what funding you have and how do I deal with these challenges. Perhaps you just want to give us an input as to how are you managing now that, and what's the reality on the ground?
Yeah. So we just approved last week or 2 weeks ago, the budgets were a bit delayed. So we just approved our budget. Public Works has a very small budget, only 2.3 billion. I know it doesn't sound small, but compared to other departments, it's the second smallest of all the budgets. But we have an interesting system of working, and I think that's also systemically a failure, that the infrastructure budget still goes to all the other departments. So to build new schools, to give you an example, that budget goes to the Department of Education, and then they pay us to do it. So there's a bit of a disconnect in that. And same with municipalities, that the budgets go to them, the grants go to them, and then we can come in and assist them. So the budget, our budget is just really to run the department and to make sure we can provide these services to the others. But the fact of the matter is, we sit with a municipality like eThekwini that sent back large amounts of grant money to the national government. They're not spending the money they get. Storm damage money, the disaster management money, they had to send it back. Now, if the sewage is still running into the ocean 4 years after the storm and you didn't spend that money, how can you justify that to the people? And that's where we now going to come in as provincial government and say, let's help you as a municipality. You're getting 5 million rand or 5 billion rand or whatever the case might be. You're struggling to spend it for whatever reason. We will help you spend it on what it's supposed to be spent. And that is fixing the infrastructure. Water is also one that I feel very strongly about, because currently water falls as the mandate of the national government, the Department of Water Affairs, and your district municipalities or your metro. So the province is totally skipped. We have no official role to play in water infrastructure. And we're saying, but that's a failure, because you can't have Pretoria decide on the water needs of KwaZulu-Natal, because our water needs is not the needs of Gauteng, of Western Cape, of Northern Cape, or Northwest Province. So they have to give the provinces a bit more of a role there. And I know I'm from a party that believes in federalism, and I'm a federalist myself, but I do think that the country have to really look and say some of these mandates have to be given to the provinces to play that role. We have to give a water plan and then say, all right, let's make sure the bulk water goes where it goes. And I was in Jozini last week, and you have this beautiful dam, and the community right next to the dam wall has no water, haven't had water for 28 years. Now, how can you live next to a huge dam and not have water? That's a failure of government, and we have to answer for that. But because the province is not managing the water infrastructure, that's why it's happening.
Martin, in terms of, you have a government of national unity, you have a provincial of national unity, there could be some linkages with the current municipality, maybe not as close as these two spheres of government. Perhaps if you just want to indicate, I know last week we briefly spoke, the president says that, as far as he is concerned, the GNU is gaining momentum. There are differences amongst the participants, but they're beginning to reach common ground. In terms of province, you have the IFP, you have the DA, you have the ANC, and you have the NFP as one of the smaller parties, and then you have the opposition of MK, who are the majority, and EFF. How is your relationship and cohesion like national? Are you all gaining ground? Do you all have a united force that's working together with one vision? For the benefit of our listeners, because many times you get people saying, but the GNU is a waste of time, the PGNU is a waste of time. Will this prevail in the municipalities? It's likely. So how do you see it at the moment? Are you all looking at the interests of the province, the country? Are you all working in unity? Party politics are kept aside? You're prepared to raise the issue with other colleagues if there are areas of concern. Perhaps you just want to enlighten our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to also know that the GPU and GNU was two separate negotiations, and the one is not dependent on the other. So if the GNU, for whatever reason, does fail, the GPU will continue, because it's not linked to one another. The one can stand alone. And the GNU is having many challenges. for different reasons. And I'm not in the GNU, so I can't comment too much on that. But in the GPU, we've been a stable government for a year and 2 months now. We've had no serious crisis that almost brought the provincial government to its knees. Some people say we're currently in a crisis because of some allegations against 2 MECs, but even that, I think we are still working well together. And it was a change for us all. The Honourable MEC for Human Settlement, Honourable Duma, and I used to clash vehemently in the legislature. We were sparring partners. We were always in the same debates. And now we're sitting in the same cabinet. And that you have to change your mindset to do that. And we both did that. And you remember that I said earlier today, the hardest part of opposition is you come with good suggestions, no one listens to you. Now in a cabinet, I come with a good suggestion and they listen. And they say, well, that's actually a good idea, even though it's a DA idea because we won government. And there's some ideas.
You're working as a team, as a cohesive team.
And cabinet meetings can be very robust. We'll have our disagreements. But, I always say that I firmly believe the majority of political parties in this country want to get to the same destination. We just differ in the road to get there, but we still have the same thing in mind that we want to do. And there are more, and this is true for all South Africans, there are more that bind us together than that to divide us. And even between political parties, yes, the IFP and us have our differences. They're more to the right than us. We in the ANC, our differences are well known. We've been fighting each other for a very long time. But I think the reason the GPU stands stronger than the GNU is a couple of reasons. One is we're only 4 parties. The GNU is a lot more parties. And I think it's a lot harder to manage it when you have 8 or 10 parties in a coalition than when you have only 4 parties in a coalition. The second reason is that because there's a strong opposition in this province with MKP, and these 4 parties feel very strongly that that party has to be kept out of government. So I think, sometimes enemies make the best friends. So I think that is also uniting these 4 parties in that. I jokingly yesterday, I told someone that, MKP currently now is on its 9th chief whip in 1 year in the legislature. So I said, if they were in government, we'll probably already be in our 7th premier. Because the instability that exists in the MKP. So no, the GP is very stable. I think we're also lucky in that Premier Ntuli from the IFP, he's a very calm person. He's a person that listens, gets all the ideas, and then move forward. So I do think we are finding each other, and there will be hiccups. It's never going to be smooth. Coalition government is hard, but I personally believe coalition is the purest form of democracy, because then you have checks and balances even within your government, and you get that differing of ideas. And our national motto is strengthen our diversity, and that's exactly what a coalition is.
So now, just before I ask my colleague to come in, you're 1 year, 2 months in office.
Yeah.
The achievements you've made and what you envisage going forward. Perhaps if you can just sum up, Martin.
Yeah, no, I'll try and do that very quickly. I've spoken about the properties and the audit that we've done. We have managed to unblock 58 projects that were stalled. We've unblocked them, and they're now going to completion. And
they were unblocked for what reasons, Martin?
Some of them were non-payment. Some of them were construction mafia. Some of them were just contractors not performing. So So what we did is we formed a rapid response team that meets weekly. That immediately, if there's a blockage, looks at what it is and unblocked this. And some of it was just bureaucracy that we've just took the red tape away and said, let's make all this a lot quicker. On the contractors, when I came in, the department owed over almost 600 million to contractors. Some of these contractors haven't been paid in 5 years. And a contractor is not paid is a child that doesn't eat at night. We've managed to pay up to 550 million rand of that as of last week. And most of our contractors now being paid within 30 days. And I'm very proud of that fact. And then something we announced last week is we've made deals with MTN, and we're also in talks with Vodacom currently, because of connectivity is a big problem in rural areas. If you go to a clinic, the clinic can't phone an ambulance to come fetch a sick patient. You can't phone your police station. Kids at school can't access the internet. So we've just released 8 of our properties in the Umkhanyakude district, which is the most rural of the districts in KZN, right on the border with Mozambique and Swaziland. And we've negotiated for 12 more properties from the national government. So 20 new cell phone towers is going up in these deeply rural areas, so that they will have connectivity. So we are leveraging what we have, and we're saying to these companies, use our properties for free, but please make sure that our rural areas have connectivity, because it's important for us to do so. So if I have to sum up the 4 most important things, I think those are the ones I would focus on.
No, thanks very much, Martin. Before I let you go, my colleague Sam Kennedy is present. He joins me from time to time as a political analyst. I'm going to give him an opportunity to...
He was here when I was here last time as well, so...
raise one comment or question, but be brief because, I don't want to take more than what I've allocated to Martin because next time you won't come here. So, Sam, here you are. Please, you want to make a comment or a quick question to Martin?
Yeah, look, I think Martin, firstly, it would be appropriate to say congratulations on your political achievement or political progress. Two, I think looking at what you've been doing, particularly yourself, at provincial level, I think the department is a bit more slick. I think it was too bureaucratic, and I think it was too politically partial. And so the myth that everybody's anti-DA, that's not true. So let's put you at ease there. However, and it's part of my role. I also do op-eds for community newsletters, and I'm talking to 40,000 people at a time. And those people are telling me, look, these are the questions that if you're sitting down with Martin, you need to ask these questions. Firstly, in Phoenix and Tongaat, Chatsworth I'm not fully appraised of, but I know there's challenges there. We have serious water reticulation problems. Your chair was also the minister, the National Minister of Public Works. So you have the National Minister of Public Works, who is the chairman of KZN, the Deputy Minister of Public, the MEC of Public Works, who's the Deputy Chairperson of the DA. So you have that link. Dean goes to Phoenix and propositions a whole lot of rhetoric, political rhetoric, and nothing happens during a by-election. And then something else happens, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, he was there again. And for me, this is where I see the disjuncture. I know Martin. I mean, I've had a debate with Martin. We disagree on a number of issues, but it's cordial, it's professional. Where we agree, we support. And like I said, I think his department. So
your concern is the disconnect you want Martin to.
I want the disconnect. I'm saying the disconnect is the people of Phoenix need you. They don't want Dean McPherson. You, the link of this province. We don't want political rhetoric from a national minister who's pushing out newsletters and saying, this is what we're doing, this is what I'm doing. No. We have, whether we agree or disagree with the PNU or PGU, we want to see Martin Meyer, right? He's our link. He's an Italian, he's a KZN boy, although Dean is. We want Martin. You also Deputy Chair. Get involved. Say to the people of Phoenix, yes, I understand. I'll facilitate it. You have the contacts. You have that leverage where you can pick up the phone and say to the mayor through Tula Sizwe or whoever at provincial level, listen, guys, we definitely got a problem in Tongaat and we definitely got a problem in... Let me tell you, Yunus, the problem in Tongaat with water is catastrophic. Tongaat haven't had water since the floods, 3 years. The problems in Phoenix are chaotic, right? And without putting a political hat where people pop up just for by-elections, let's deal with the issue. And that's all we're saying.
Samuel, let's give Martin an opportunity. Martin?
So let me say on Phoenix, for instance, and I said earlier that, we are now as a department trying to play an oversight role and a support role to municipalities, because the water still falls under the metro, not the provincial government, but we have a role to play and we know more.
Agreed.
And we have a MOU with eThekwini that we signed and that Minister McPherson also signed. So the two of us sat together, and I have a lot of respect for Mayor Kaba as well. I think there's a lot of problems in the city, but I think it can be fixed. So in Phoenix, I'll give you one example that our department has done. Councillor Samir Singh came to us and said, listen, there's money available. It's the block sum money. I don't know what they call them, but I used to call them block sum money that every councillor had some leeway into using their wards. And he wants to sink 5 boreholes. But the best place to sink them is the schools that falls under my Department of Public Works. We fast-tracked that. We managed to do that and said, yes, we're willing to work with you, make it available, as long as not only the school benefits, the community around must also be able to benefit. So it's going to be positioned in such a place, the tap is there, so when there's a water outage. Now, I know that's not the long-term solution, but long-term solution is called long-term for a reason. We also have to look at short-term and medium-term solutions. So that's one example where local government and provincial government can come together, work together, and come up with a very real solution that assists people. But we are still politicians, and politicians will do what politicians do. Politicians will talk. Politicians will come.
And we political analysts, and
you have to analyze what you say. Yes, you know, so we're all playing our role as we're supposed to do. And Dean has done a lot of good things, you know, on a national level as well. You know, the IDT crisis that we're seeing now, he's done. And Dean won't even get angry at me for saying that Dean and I have very different styles of working, very different. But his style works for what he needs to do. My style works for what I need to do. And I have a lot of respect. I mean, Dean and I used to be councillors together. He was Durban North and I was in Morningside, you know. Durban North, by the way, John Steenhuisen was a councillor in Durban North. He's now the leader of the party. Dean was a councillor in Durban North. He's now a minister. And Nicole Bowman was then, and she's now a member of parliament. So,
that's during our reign of office.
Yes.
I was there. I know these guys.
And in KZN, it's especially blessed because the Deputy Minister of Public Works, Sihle Sigalala, is also from KZN. So KZN has a lot of good representation there. So I agree with you, more needs to be done. And I agree with you. And it's not only Phoenix and Tongaat.
I just gave you 2 examples.
No, I agree. But I mean, where I live in the Mountain Toti, we have only water certain times of the day. It is the whole city. But it's especially bad in Phoenix and Tongaat. This problem is going on way too long. Same, for instance, in the Ugu municipality. The water crisis has been going on for 13 years.
Yes.
And the problem is purely an electricity issue with cables from the Eastern Cape that for 5 years they couldn't sort out. And that's where we need to get involved. So I'm not going to say everything is perfect and hunky-dory. No, we're far from it. But it will only work if civil society takes hand with government. If the political parties also stop our bickering and just start working for what we're supposed to do. And if the communities work with us.
And you got a hotline.
There is a Premier's hotline.
Public Works. Have you got a hotline?
We do not have at this stage. We have a complaint line and we have a whistleblowing line because that's our focus right now is our corruption issue that we have mostly sorted now. But people are more than welcome to contact my office or through emails. It's very simple to contact my office. It's all on our webpage. And we've opened up our... my problem is my staff actually complains that I'm too open. Because if I have long office hours, they have to have long office hours, unfortunately. But, you know, I'm a firm believer. I've had meetings with over 100 NPOs in the last 5 months because I believe that civil society and government must work together, even if we disagree.
Agreed.
Martin, I know we run out of time. I think, you know, you inherited a lot of these problems. You're dealing with a lot of challenges. It's a long road ahead, but you're chipping away and making the difference, dealing with maladministration, dealing with corruption. Just on a closing note, as the Ansaar Foundation, we've put up two boreholes in 2 schools in the last year, one in a disabled school in this ward and another one in Verulam at a cost of 260,000. Our foundation will want to work with your department to assist the indigent communities because that's our job here. And we plan to ensure that with civil society, with ratepayer associations, with the councillors, with yourselves in provincial and national government, we all work together to improve service delivery. It's not one individual's responsibility. We appreciate you attending to the challenges, addressing them urgently, but we look forward to meeting you sometime in the future, having more interviews with you, but interacting with your office because you're dealing with a very important portfolio. I thank you for joining us today, Martin. I promised you I'll keep you for 35 minutes. It'll be a very frank interview, and I've got more interviews coming up. And on another occasion, maybe I'll give you a longer time. We can chat about more important issues as you get more involved in the office setup. But I thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your hands-on approach, the fact that you came into the studio to really, explain what's happening. We appreciate it. We wish you everything of the best,
Thank
and
you.
whatever support you need from us as the Ansaar Foundation and our linkage with ratepayer associations, we deal with them. We are ever willing, because we are here to serve the people of not only KwaZulu and Natal, but all the other areas, including Msunduzi and Pietermaritzburg, where there are a lot of challenges as well. We thank you, Martin, and wish
Thank
you
you so
everything
much.
of the best.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was Minister Martin Meyer, one of our guests in this evening's show. He's the Minister of Public Works. We're going to take a short break, and we'll definitely continue with our interview after the break. I'm just trying to get Mufti Sahib.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ہو کر صبر کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں گلی وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان ہے آقا کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہاں جان گئے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فزوں کرے خدا جانے ہے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فزوں کرے خدا جس کو درد کا مزہ جس کو درد کا مزہ سانسیں دوا اٹھائے کیوں پھر کے گلی دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہے تو رضا نرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم ہے تو رضا نرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم کوئی بجائے سوز غم کوئی بجائے سوز غم سازے طرب بجائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ یا حبیب اللہ آقا 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 پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ہو کر سب کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جا
Radio Al Ansar, 24/7, 365.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news, this are the 13th of August. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Police probe body parts found in Verulam, America. An investigation has been launched after body parts were found in Verulam, north of Durban. A report says a newspaper dispatcher made a gruesome discovery in Trenance Park today. The newspaper dispatcher called local security for help. The local security spokesperson, Prem Baram, says they dispatched a team to the area where the remains were found near a boundary wall of a primary school. Baram says that at the scene they found a pair of hands clutching each other, wrapped in a white cloth that was blood-stained. Baram says they handed over the scene to the police and they have confirmed that they have launched a probe. More news, eThekwini Municipality Mayor Cyril Aba says the reopening of Codemore Bridge is just the beginning as the city continues to rebuild after years of flood damage. The bridge in Yellowwood Park, south of Durban, was one of many structures destroyed during the 2022 floods. Report says after a long and challenging construction process delayed by technical issues and further flooding, the first vehicles crossed the new double carriage way earlier this month. The mayor, Cyril Aba, officially opened the bridge with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Aba says thereafter there will be more unveiling. The mayor also met with residents at the Yellowwood Civic Hall to provide updates on the city's recovery efforts. Mandy Costa, chair of the Montwood Ratepayers Association, says the reopening has brought relief. Home Affairs Deputy Minister Njabulani Zuza says they have set up 4 mobile offices around Germiston area, east of Johannesburg, after the main office at the CBD was torched yesterday. The Home Affairs office was allegedly set ablaze by angry residents of Fairhope Park Flats in Ekurhuleni after the city obtained a court order to evict non-paying residents who were deemed to be unlawfully occupying the property. And Zuza is visiting the scene of the burnt building today.
You have a building that is servicing 500 people a day who come here to get their enabling documents, either because they want to go to a bank and transact, either because they want to go and register their child for social welfare, either because they want to look for employment. And someone just comes and touches that building. Now, this building is a standalone. It has nothing to do with the evictions issue that was happening. And then you build a petrol bomb to then attack a state property. This is very barbaric for us, and we think it's something that is very wrong. And as I've said, we'll work with the police to make sure that the perpetrators are brought into book. It has caused a big inconvenience. As I've said, if you look here, the entire first floor is for immigration services. Now, this is where you will find visa adjudications. This is where you will find immigration files for illegal foreigners who are supposed to be processed, and cases of counter-corruption and so on that are being dealt with here. All of those files gone up in smoke. We're just lucky that in the bottom floor, the fire did affect, but mainly it is water damage.
And finally, international story, more than 100 former members of the European Parliament representing various political factions have jointly condemned the continuous starvation of the civilian population in Gaza as war crime, calling for the complete suspension of the EU's association agreement with Israel. The appeal was made in an open letter signed by 110 former MPs yesterday, criticizing the European Union's response to the conflict in Gaza. They said the failure of EU states to agree to such proposals would expose their complicity in Israel's war crimes in Gaza, emphasizing the necessity for concrete action against the regime and urging European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to take decisive steps against Israel. Additionally, the signatories criticized the belated decision by the European Commission in late July to propose a partial suspension of Israel's access to the EU's Horizon Europe research and innovation program. They say it was too little too late in response to Israel's atrocities in Gaza. Your weather tonight, it's 22 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. An investigation has been launched after body parts were found in Verulam, north of Durban. A newspaper dispatcher made a gruesome discovery in Trenance Park today. That's the news.
Radio Ansaar, keeping you in the loop.
The chaos and destruction in the Gaza Strip is beyond comprehension. Virtually everyone is displaced, hungry, and in urgent need of life-saving humanitarian support. The Al Imdad Foundation has been working tirelessly to address the health, nutrition, and water needs of the population. Our hospital, water deliveries, and hot meal programs are made possible with your support. Your donation, big or small, is a lifeline for those in dire need. Help Gaza survive. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Looking for a journey that feeds the soul? Join Worldview Travel on an unforgettable Islamic Turkey group tour with Maulana Muhammad Vanker from the 6th to the 18th of October 2025. Explore the rich Islamic history of Istanbul, Bursa, Konya, and Alanya. 11 nights of inspiration, culture, and spiritual reflection. Fly with Qatar Airways, ex-Durban. Call our Durban office now on 071-835-0216 to book your seat. Worldview Travel creates memories to last a lifetime.
J. Junaid Jamshed's Freedom Sale is now live. Now avail a flat 25% off and flat 50% off on all items. Avail the most exciting offers from 7th August till 17th August 2025. Or shop online at za.junaidjamshed.com.
Saturday, 11th of October 2025. You, your family, and everyone you know have a date with the Breakfast Rush team and everyone at Radio Ansaar. What will you be doing? Well, walking, running, socializing, and so much more. Online registrations are now open on our website, alansar.org.za. If I can make it to this event all the way from Johannesburg, so can you.
Getting you through your day. Radio Ansaar.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Ansaar, keeping you informed.
Allah, 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 तन्हा हूँ मैं और इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير मायूब हूँ तेरा करम पर्दा रखा इज्जत भी दी बढ़ के दिया औकात से दौलत भी ताकत भी और वक्त भी कर दे खता हर माफ तू फहरिस्त इसियां को छोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس کہ یہی کر دوں تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لب पे रहे ذکر و دعا اور تجھ سے میں ڈرتا رہوں کر کے عمل قرآن پہ جنت کی راہوں پہ چلتا رہوں خدمت کروں اسلام کی پچھتاوے کا غم توڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل روتا رہا سجدوں میں جو دل میں لیے امت کا غم پڑھتا رہوں میں تو فتن اپنے نبی پہ درود ہر قدم ہو روح جب تن سے جدا جنت کی جانب چلے دوڑ کر اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marsberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were interviewing the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Martin MEYER, and he gave us an overview of the provincial government of national unity, and in particular the status of the portfolio that he's managing and the way forward. And he indicated to us that they're working as a team to improve service delivery. So it was a very progressive response from Minister Martin MEYER. We hope to have him for a longer interview going forward. But, time ran out and we've got other interviews to do. We wanted to interview Mufti Muhammad AKOO from DARUL Newcastle. Unfortunately, he wasn't available, and we will interview him next week, where he will give us the Islamic perspective of global tensions, particularly in Palestine. What was the issue in Palestine in the past, and the current setup, and exactly why the problems are taking place in Palestine. However, to continue our discussion for this evening, we're going to chat with our economist, asset manager HASSAN MOTALA. The markets are doing very well. The rand is doing very well. So would all the global tariff increases by Trump and the fact that South Africa is not begging to Trump, the markets are responding positively. So Hassan will give us an update on to why that is happening. We also have in the studio with us LENDY SPIRES. She's the deputy organizer of MYER Consultative Forum. She'll tell us more about this particular forum. She also belongs to an organization called Krotoa SA Foundation from the Western Cape, She's been a civic activist and a human research activist and involved in various other forums. Going forward, she's going to chat to us really about what the challenges are in this country post democracy, 30 years into democracy, and give us an analysis of the performance of some of the parties and why there's a need for some new parties to come into the bloc, and will they make a difference. We also have Samuel Kennedy, our political analyst, who comes in and asks the controversial questions. And Abdul Valodia, he's one of a civic activist, the chairman of Overport Residents Ratepayers Association. He's also the chairperson of United for Palestine. He's joining us live in the studio, expressing himself. But before I interview our guests, I'd like to welcome Lendy SPIRES. Lendy, good evening and welcome to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar.
Good evening and thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, we understand that you are hailing from the Western Cape and you're on a tour of the different provinces, and KwaZulu-Natal is the last, but the most important province that you are really meeting with, primarily because of the emergence of MK from nowhere, taking 40% of the votes in this particular region. So you've done your final visit here with your leader, Floyd Shivambu, because you believe this is a very important province, the province where a lot of our presidents have come from, and a lot of our political leaders have come from this province.
Yes, absolutely. My Buye consultation process has embarked on a countrywide consultation with the various organizations, political heads, volunteers, youth, as well as traditional leaders and religious leaders. Yes, MK Party did take 40% of the voters here in KZN, and this is a very important party for my Buye consultation process, because what we are set out to do is there is a very big need for the work of my Buye. We know that what we have to offer is totally different, and that what we stand for is so important. Communities right now have a problem with very much a lot that is happening in politics. Shortly, we as My Buye is really looking forward for the next 6 days. We will be in different parts of KZN. Thank you.
Now, before I, give our listeners an indication on who you are and where this party has emerged from, our informal discussion this evening was indicative of the fact that there are a lot of political parties representing communities in South Africa, and we noted that in the last provincial and national elections. Some parties got many seats, other parties got few seats, some parties lost their deposit because they got no seats, but they contested the elections and people voted accordingly. There were a lot of indications that there was voter rigging and the like, but ultimately those that emerged are in national or provincial government. And like we interviewed Martin, who is part of the province of National Unity, and his counterparts are in the government of National Unity representing the Democratic Alliance. The parties that were linked up there is the ANC and other parties, and in the province there's 4 parties. Now, your leader, Floyd Shivambu, who was part of the formation of the Mayebola Consultative Forum, was a member of the African National Congress. He was an MP there. He then joined the Economic Freedom Fighters because they were not happy with certain issues in the ANC. And then having been the Secretary General, correct me if I'm wrong, of the Economic Freedom Fighters, after many, many years, there were some challenges with the leadership. And he then joined MK, who became a big opposition on the bloc. Having joined MK, he was a Secretary General for not more than a year, if I presume so. And he realized that this is not the party that I should be with because of certain challenges there. And then that's a party run by Jacob Zuma together with ex-EFF ANC colleagues. And when he hopped out as the Secretary General, it then emerged that he needs to look at other options available. And this is where it's leading us to this Maibuya Consultative Forum. Now, when a leader or a secretary general of another party forms a party in consultation with colleagues of his in the political circle, he or she obviously want to ensure that the challenges we faced with the other parties, we're going to address it here. So from a civic perspective, and also from a perspective of being, involved with different NGOs, you, LENDY SPIRES, is the deputy organizer, and you obviously have an organizer of this particular forum, which is to be launched as a political party in due course. Now, the reason why we're interviewing here today is because we want our ratepayer associations, we want our NGOs to understand that political involvement is not only linked to existing political parties. There is room for new parties to come in the block, but you must get your act together when you form your party, because as I said, in the last provincial and national elections, a lot of new parties emerged, but they didn't get the threshold of votes to really get a seat. And that culminated in not much political or public support. So in terms of Maibuya, you mentioned to me, LENDY, that you've been to the 9 provinces over the last couple of weeks. You are currently in KZN recruiting members for your executive, and you're recruiting people that have got exposure to government, local government, and the like, ultimately to become part of the municipal elections or to contest the municipal elections in 2026. Perhaps you just want to outline to our listeners in eThekwini and surrounds, Msunduzi and Kwadaguza and the municipalities that Radio Al-Ansar reaches out to, is that why there's a need to form this Maibuya Consultative Forum? And number 2, what inroads do you think this particular forum, being a ratepayer organization or a civic forum, now forming a party, will have, so that other civic organizations will know that we don't necessarily have to join the bigger parties? So, LENDY, I've given you a mouthful. You can discuss it and come from various angles, whatever you can do, first, second, third, fourth. I know you took some notes. Go for it. I know you've got some members here to chat, with you. And I've got Samuel he was involved with elections as well, to tell you why it is good what you're doing or why it is not good. So go for it, LENDY.
Thank you very much. One correction. I am the Deputy National Organizer.
Okay.
And yes, we have.
Okay, they just wrote it down, the Deputy Organizer.
Yes,
You're the
Deputy National Organizer.
Okay, good.
Yes, and you mentioned there's various parties that was formed over the years. In total, there was actually 650 parties formed.
Okay, so it's a large number.
Currently at the IEC, which is registered.
650.
Yes, 650. And yes, we did work through 9 provinces. And we have been recruiting people as per our consultation. We identified people that we saw that had potential for the type of leadership we were looking for in each province. And those leadership provincial structures is what we're busy concluding. So a lot of people have been identified. We are finalizing certain structures within the province, and well as additionals within provinces. And now those provinces are now bringing their regional structures for approval at the national level. So that is where we are busy with. So structure-wise, we have done very well. I can't believe it.
Now, the model of your structures, are you following a particular party's model, or this is a unique model for you all?
I think in a way, this is a combination of both. We're unique in the form that it will be the first time that all of our structures will include traditional leaders, will include religious leaders, will include youth, will include women, and will have a gender balance. That is most important. Gender balance 50-50 as far as we can. And that is unique. because that is what we set out to do from the beginning. So we're going through a process where we have these leadership with provinces having to come and bring their leaders and list, and we're literally going through them one by one to make sure that the geographical spread of this leadership is well placed within each province as well as in each region, which make this very unique in our form. When it comes to the issue of the structures, which I just said, it is unique. And you are saying, why do we need to form this forum? This was very important because all political parties, you call the ANC, the EFF, as well as the MK party, we all believed in all of them at one stage, but they failed us as communities, they failed us as a population, they failed us as women, as youth, as traditional leaders and religious leaders. And what we have found is that they have become very self-absorbed within their own needs, and it was no longer for the needs of the people, but rather the needs of individuals or maybe a couple of people. So we know that this party as MKHWANAZI movement is needed because we have to look at that what we've lost. The hope that we have as communities is for MKHWANAZI to deliver on the hopes that we once had with the ANC and EFF as well as MK.
Now, in terms of the challenges that you'll have identified that the other parties have caused or not delivered, can you highlight some of the key challenges? For example, the ANC now, it's reported that corruption, maladministration, fraud, and the lack of vision is an area of concern. In terms of the EFF, your leader would have been with the EFF, and there's leadership struggles, and the fact that they are the opposition, they're not in a position to deliver. But if they're on a coalition like in the eThekwini, they're still not influencing service delivery. In terms of MK, it's driven by certain agenda. The leader of MK is the former president, who is facing a whole lot of charges. With him, he has a whole lot of sort of representatives that have been cited for issues in the ANC. So your leader was involved with these parties, and now there's a decision to organize himself with other leaders and role players in this so-called MKHWANAZI Consultative Forum. But what are the key challenges that these different parties, have not dealt with? And how do you think, the second question is that when he forms this party, when he registers this party, that you will get the support to make the difference?
The key challenge that we have with some of these parties, they lack collective leadership. A lot of the decisions within MK, within EFF, was formed by one or two individuals. And for us as MKHWANAZI, and what Floyd has identified is that collective leadership is one of the principles of MKHWANAZI consultation process, as well as Africa MKHWANAZI movement. And I think through having the collective leadership in the way that we're going to have our policies developed, when we have our consultations, when it comes to commissions and committees, that is going to be set up. The collective leadership structures and decisions is going to be the key that is going to eliminate the challenges that other parties used to have. And I think your second question was some of the challenges that was experienced by the former president in MK, Jacob Zuma, that what he has done. I think that is also the same answer that I would give, that with former President Jacob Zuma and the challenges that posed through leadership is the reason why Floyd Shivambu have left and forming a new party so that things can be done in a different way. One of the things that he have identified, one of the challenges he identified was that this party was run like a stokvel, like a family business. And that is what has created the problem mostly within MK party. EFF leadership, more or less the same thing. Floyd has mentioned it over and over again to say that we cannot be a cult, and there was a cult type of a leadership that was displayed within the EFF, and that is what caused us to have a collective leadership within Maibuya, and this is a process that we're currently embarking on.
Now, your interaction with potential members in the various provinces, what has been the reaction? Because you've been through many provinces and KZN is the last province. What is the reaction? Do you have an enthusiastic response, and do you believe that you're getting overwhelming support in the different provinces?
Absolutely overwhelming support. People are very enthusiastic. People saying, can't you finish this consultation? We are finished with consultation so that we can just have this party. Register this party. Yes, we want to have a political party. We know this can be done. We have faith in you. We have confidence in you. And this is coming from civic organizations. It's coming from individuals, from communities, from traditional leaders, which include kings and chiefs, and as well as religious leaders. In Cape Town, we had a very awesome attendance. One of the churches of plus minus 2 to 3 million people have given us a very warm welcome, and the enthusiasm that was displayed in the church for Maibuya to become a political party is what is giving us very much confidence.
Now, the leadership that you have in your party, do they have the credentials to influence, like in Western Cape and other areas, people to support this particular initiative or this forum that is to be formed?
The leadership qualities and credibility of this leadership is very high. They are seasoned politicians. Some of them have started with Floyd in the ANC Youth League. They've been in EFF, they in MK, and they have occupied various positions within the top 5, within the top 10 positions.
In the various provinces.
In various provinces, and that is what is so encouraging to us, that we have seasoned politicians mixed with newcomers like myself from a civic organization. I've never been at this level of politics. I'm learning a lot from these seasoned politicians, and I'm really looking forward to this. And the same for pastors and traditional leaders that is coming in. We're all learning from seasoned politicians, and that is what is strengthening these structures that is currently being
So
formed.
you say the manifesto of this particular forum is an all-inclusive manifesto that's not looking at any race, any kind of community, etc.
Our manifestos is going to be based on provincial needs of each of the communities, because some of the manifesto might not be applicable in the Eastern Cape as it is for the Western Cape or even for Gauteng. There are different needs in each one of the provinces. So very much a provincial, we're going to have a national manifesto, but then we're going to have specific provincial manifestos as well.
So certainly there is a need for, in addition to the 650, that this forum going to play an important role, unlike the other smaller parties that came with a manifesto and had limited support and did not make the cut in the last elections.
I would say if those smaller political parties that is currently still registered, come join Maibuya, because we have space for you. And that what we will be able to do is it's going to strengthen us. So a lot of political parties has already given their support in Western Cape, and they will be joining with us, and we're going to make certain announcements very soon. And we are very happy, and some of them has already been incorporated within our structures. So we are very happy about that.
So you're telling the smaller parties, come with your support, join us, and maybe you will get more success in that way. Because I have one of the members of a smaller party present here in the studio,
yes,
and I want to hear his reaction.
I'm saying smaller parties, please come and join with Maibuya. There's a lot that is to be offered. And yes, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Now, before I come to you, Samuel, I know that a lot of people are disillusioned with the current political setup. Those that formed the smaller parties didn't make the cut and lost their deposit, and some have lost millions. Now, I know, Samuel, you've been involved with parties over the last 2 decades or 3 decades, and you have a situation where the bigger political parties were also scouting for leadership from the different parties. I want you to bring to our listeners' attention that you were one of the 650 parties that contested the provincial and national elections. Forget about voter rigging, etc., that we can't get answers to now. I want you to, obviously, you were listening to the interview of Dr. LENDY SPIRES, and she's given us frank responses and answered some of the difficult questions that I posed with her. Maybe she'll have room to add. But from your perspective, number one, I want to know what is the room for new parties to come in the bloc, and what kind of support will a new party get? Because what do the communities want from a new party, which Lendy has said this Maya Booya Forum offers? Because this is not a political debate yet. It's basically over the next couple of months, we're going to give organizations an opportunity to express themselves in my show. So you were involved with a smaller party, number one, Sam. Number two, why you were unsuccessful.
Yeah,
and number three, do you think that it's better that the smaller parties get absorbed by the bigger parties?
Yeah, let's cut the waffle out. Let's cut the waffle out. Number one, 650 parties didn't contest the elections.
How many
There
parties?
were only 52.
Right, but 650
Let me
parties
finish.
were formed.
No,
Registered.
irrespective.
Right.
Only 52 parties contested the elections, of which I was chair of 26. So you cannot say, let's disregard vote rigging. Vote rigging is a fact. Two, I think as a commentator, the emergence or the advent of this particular organization.
Which one? The one that you're referring to?
The one I'm
My Booya.
referring to now, My
Yeah,
Booya.
My Booya.
yes.
My Booya means come.
Yes.
That's
What
all
it
it means. It means come.
Come. In
Come
Zulu
join. Come
or-
join. It's a Zulu word.
Right.
Or Nguni word, because it has the closer. Zulu is the same thing.
So it means come. You
Means
welcome.
Join. That's what it means.
Join.
My Booya, join. Come. It has all the different meanings. There's democracy allows multiplicity of political entities. So the notion that you have too many political parties is a myth. That's what the Constitution says. It says people must join in the numbers. You can go and open up another 100. Whether you win, that's a different story. The some of the challenges I have with My Booya is, one, they've got some guy called Bishop Zondo, and he sits with Abdul on the religious sector.
In KZN.
No, nationally.
But is he from KZN?
No, he's from Joburg.
Right.
And the caution to My Booya is you need to rein in. You know what rein in means? You need to pull in some of your people so they don't make statements that push other people away. For example, Christian community in KZN, in South Africa, is 80%. He's making inflammatory statements about Christians.
Where he made this statement?
He made some video. He says Christians are Christianity is colonial. It's nonsense. So political parties mustn't get involved in religious issues that push people away.
The leader made that comment.
This guy Zondo, he sits on the top
Zondo,
13 or top 12. That's the first issue.
No, but he's a priest in which denomination?
He's a Christian.
Christian.
Well, he's a so-called bishop.
But why is he making that statement about
He made it on their forum. Okay, but be that as it may, I think that there definitely is a space for Floyd and his people. There's no two ways about it. South African politics is fraught. It needs.
Is there space for success, or
there's space for success
for just competing?
There's a space for success, but the space with Floyd, and we hope that he doesn't go around and smack media people like he did when he was in the EFF. So that's a caution again to say, hopefully now that you're a leader of your own party, we don't have the same situation where you smack and get convicted of smacking journalists.
He smacked a journalist.
He smacked a journalist in Parliament. So, but what we're saying is,
when he was with the EFF.
When he was with the EFF, there's a space for Floyd. There's a space for his own entity. The third issue is, and I'm saying to Dr.
Lendy.
Spears, because I've got very big family in the Western Cape, and I'm well known in the Western Cape, is we cannot have new entities that are now reflective of society. In this studio, at the last ANC provincial conference, one of the biggest things we raised as commentators was that the ANC provincial under Duma, or at the time Duma was elected, if you remember, had no minorities. Now, if I look at the composition of Maibuye, and Floyd has a history of being anti-minority, right? We hope he's repented or changed, and we hope that his organization is reflective of the composition or the demographics of South Africa. Dr. Lendy is one of them, but she's not on the top 13. She's outside. Or are you on the top 13?
Yes.
Okay, if she's on the top 10, it's fine. But we need to see more minority representation, in particular Indians. There are no Indians there, and the question is why.
In the top 13.
In the top 13.
Top 30 or 13?
13.
13.
1-3.
1-3. And so we're saying,
well, he's still working, she said, on her structures
towards a convention. We're talking about the interim. They have a 13 top
well, maybe
13.
they offered it to Indians and they're not interested.
Well, she can tell us that.
Listen, I want to bring Abdul in. Abdul, you are involved with the structure. You're involved with many other structures. So you're a jack of all structures. But obviously you're saying, and I think it's good that a civic activist keeps his options open, his or her options. And obviously you hosting various parties in meetings, being the chair of ORA and being the chair of United for Palestine, you're holding those two caps. But politically, you're looking to work with all the structures, and whichever one suits you, you will work. You've been involved recently with Mayebura Forum because they came and contacted you and you're hosting them. What's your take on what Kennedy is saying here? Do you agree with him?
Samuel Kennedy. Not Kennedy.
You know, I don't agree with Sam, right? I'll tell you why. Sam was one of the first members that I would say, which we are close with each other.
With you?
Which we are close. Myself and Sam, we're actually very close. And Sam was supposed to go into consultation with Maibuye himself, in person, prior to me.
And then what happened?
Somehow he was very busy with some things. And
so you're putting Sam under the bus?
Yeah. I'm putting him under the bus.
There's no bus, don't worry.
Thinking about minorities now.
There's no bus.
He was one of the first guys were there in the very beginning. In fact, we did initially, myself, Sam, and a whole lot of other people, we had discussions, into a meeting room, because we were heartful with regards to, political, what's going on. And we were looking at minorities, that we don't have a home anyway. And Sam and us, we all work very close with this.
So Sam, you say dropped off, or he couldn't get on the bus?
I think Sam is there, but you know what?
He's not there.
He's not there. He's there, but not there. I think he's waiting for the big chief to come to have a word with him. But we will get down that road. But coming to it, it's been very interesting because, obviously, I've been, very active with the top, I'll say the top 20 in the country of South Africa, which is a big number.
Top 20 of whom?
The ANC, our current
So
government.
you're talking about your involvement with all parties.
Correct,
And you're telling our
correct.
listeners that
Yes.
keep your options open.
Yes, I've been involved with the ANC. I've been involved with EFF. I mean, obviously DA. I know everybody within the DA.
And now with Mayabuya.
Now I'm here,
and you're seeing what they can offer.
and I'm seeing what they can offer, and I'm also
and whether
looking,
they have the support.
correct. And I also say, and I've also highlighted this very, very, actually went up to the party and I mentioned minorities is a very important role within the organization.
And what was their reaction?
They agreed.
Different from what Sam is saying.
It's a bit different from what Sam says, and I would blame the minorities for not approaching them.
Okay, we'll come back to that discussion. I want to bring in Hassan. Hassan, you the money man, yeah. All these parties that are being launched and they're preparing the manifestos. One of the key areas is they're going to need finance to undertake expenditure for the party. Now, I don't want you to talk about that at this stage. I was studying the JSA, before I came in here and the RAND, and I noticed the RAND hit at one stage, correct me if I'm wrong, below 1750. It's sitting around 1770, which means that I said those tariff adjustments, etc., hasn't had a serious impact on our currency. The JSE has hit 101,500 today, which means past your 100,000 by a decent number. Now, our country is looking at other options for the citrus farmers and looking at other options other than America. Now, can you tell us why our financial markets are reacting positively? What are we doing properly in South Africa? Is the GNU performing effectively? Because this is linked to now the concerns that new parties are coming in.
Sure.
Hassan?
So I think, firstly, Yunus is not only a South African specific in terms of markets.
We're responding to the global markets, yes.
Global markets have all hit record highs. You've had the S&P 500, you've had the UK market. UK market, in fact, the currency has been one of the best performing currencies year to date. The pound has done phenomenally well against the US dollar, against other currencies as well year to date, and their stock market is also at record levels. So it's been a global impact where we've seen UK, US, many Asian markets as well, and South Africa.
So our markets are cashing in on the world performance, global performance.
But specific to South Africa, so what's been driving markets overall? You've had a weaker US dollar. So weaker US dollar on the back of, firstly, the concerns around the US administration. Remember, the US is doing a lot of policies, there's tariff policies and the like, are out of the ordinary. This is not normal trade rules, not normal trade negotiations, very different. So there are concerns around the US and the concerns also around...
So it's beginning to backfire on them.
So I think initially there was thought that there will be major repercussions. I think markets have sort of gone past it and they said, okay, it's more a negotiating tactic, effectively speaking. And you've seen that he's already...
And they're looking at alternative options. For example, India, he imposed them with a heavy tariff, and they're going the route of Russia now.
So firstly, he's already negotiated. See, if you look at yesterday, he had a 90-day pause with China. He's extended it for another 90 days. Otherwise, 145% tariff would have been implemented against China. So you can see he wants to get a decent
playing a game,
deal. He's playing. He wants to get deals done, and deals that are mainly favorable to the US, but also okay for the other. So he's done already with Japan. He's done with EU. He's done with many other. However, there's still many other countries, including South Africa, Brazil, and India. The BRICS countries seem to be under pressure. And he's put, for example, Brazil and India, 50% tariffs. Whereas South Africa, we've got 30. Now, negotiations are going on. I think inevitably over time, may not happen now, but there will be a deal that will be done. But I think importantly what is happening, and you're seeing, as you just highlighted, that India's mentioned it, Brazil has mentioned it, South Africa has mentioned it. Minister Park Stow, when he had that conference earlier this week, he talked about plan A being focusing on diversifying and moving towards other markets. So not only just relying on our negotiations with the US and getting a good deal with the US, focusing on how we can expand in other markets and where they're looking at. Firstly, Africa. We've got a free trade, effectively like a free trade type of continental African agreement. We must start to maximize and utilize that. But also importantly, China, India, and the Middle East are big export markets for many of our products. And we should start utilizing those markets a lot more and exporting to those countries. So I think, South African markets, one of the biggest drivers of our performance has been the mining sector. And despite our mining sector being in, mining in SA has been on a downward decline over the last 10, 15 years. But the mining sector, the mining companies, especially the gold and the platinum, have been the best performers of the JSE year to date. To put into context, Anglo Gold Ashanti is up 150% year to date. Impala Platinum, Northern are close to up 80, 90, 100% year to date. It's because the platinum price is up 45% year to date. Gold price is up 22% year to date. So those are big drivers of our mining companies that has driven the JSE very strongly over this period. So I think when we're looking at the markets and why they've done well and why the currency has done well, it's a combination of a weaker US dollar. It's a combination of the fact that our mining sector has had a nice uptick because of the rise in prices, commodity prices. And I think thirdly, slowly but surely, you are seeing, I think, deals are being done globally. Whereas earlier, few months ago, when he first came out with that whole placard and he talked about things, there was a lot of panic. I think people have become sort of accustomed to with the way Donald Trump is, he negotiates and he trades, and is sort of understanding that inevitably or hopefully there will be some trade deals that will be, and we're seeing it already. And I think hopefully South Africa, Brazil, India, and the like, there will be potentially further deals that will be done. So I think markets are strong. They've had a very good run. The currency strengthened quite nicely, which is good for us as well. But at the same time, there are tough areas within the SA economy, and we must not lose sight of that as well. Unemployment is still relatively high. Although inflation has been tapered down very nicely, unemployment is still very high. And there is a concern, for example, the Eastern Cape. If this tariffs continues for a longer period, the automotive sector will be under massive pressure. It puts that province and the likes of Port Elizabeth and East London, those places, under pressure, and it puts those economies under pressure. So we must be wary of that. And secondly, also the agricultural sector, particularly citrus, that could also be the likes of the Western Cape, and certain parts of the Western Cape would also be a bit under pressure then. So I think domestically we're okay. In terms of opportunities still in South Africa, you are seeing international investors coming in. Despite our challenges and despite Trump and whoever's talking about the BE issues and scrapping this policy and that policy and the like, you are seeing in certain sectors that international investors are coming in.
Are they coming in because it's cheaper to invest in South Africa?
It's relatively cheaper, and there's some decent value in certain assets. So, for example, you've seen in our tourism sector and our hospitality sector, buying of properties and the hospitality, you've seen an uptick over the last 2-3 years. Club Med will be opening up next year, a massive resort in the North Coast in KZN. R1 billion resort that's being spent on. Southern Sun, after now finally negotiating with the eThekwini municipality in terms of a lease, will be doing R1 billion revamp on the North Beach area, basically the Golden Mile in Durban, revamping some of the hotels and the like over that period of time. But you're also seeing in other areas, I mean, they're talking about not only the Western Cape, which has always been historically the place where, everybody talks about tourism and the like, but you're seeing in other parts, KZN and other places, Gauteng, the Kruger, those areas, more and more foreign investors are coming in wanting to buy resorts or properties and they see tourism as a big long-term potential for South Africa. And remember, it's also a big employment creator. So while government talks about, this manufacturing and industrialization, yes, it's an important part. But to put it into context, if we return to a strong level of manufacturing, remember manufacturing's contribution has declined from 20% 10 years ago to GDP to now like about 15%. Even if you go back to 20%, you'll create maybe 1.5 million jobs. We need a lot more jobs than that to make an impact in terms of our unemployment. Therefore, things like the tourism sector, the services sector, there is a bit more people that can be employed and utilized and help to reduce the unemployment. And there are opportunities, and we are seeing it. Both the foreigners are starting to see that, but also the locals are seeing that as well.
Now, Hassan, you listen to the discussions of smaller and newer parties coming into the bloc to contest elections. I mentioned they're going to need funding, but we also discussed some time ago that the ruling party that's controlling South Africa and the formation of the GNU has had a positive reaction to the markets, because the GNU, as Martin Meyer said, is creating some form of stability. Now, is that stability expected to continue going forward? Because the president has mentioned, with all the challenges, they're dealing with corruption, maladministration, although some of the parties in the GNU have mentioned that the president hasn't acted hastily or quickly on the Zondo Commission report. But he had a problem because a lot of those guys implicated have hopped over to MK and other parties, which means he's going to start attending to those issues. And the NPA hasn't been investigating these cases promptly. But with all that said and done, the markets are still reacting in a positive way. So from a financial perspective, do you foresee stability in terms of the finances in our economy in South Africa?
Sure. Look, our fiscal situation is still relatively tough. The big issue we have, and we've talked about it numerous times on the show, is that our debt has spiraled over the last decade, really spiraled. As a country, we've become so indebted over the last 10 years, is that now 22 cents of every rand that SARS generates or is receiving in terms of tax revenues goes towards just servicing the debt, not even paying towards it, just servicing the debt. So it's put us in a very, very difficult situation. But the other issue is obviously the amount of maladministration and corrupt. I mean, this issue with the IDT, blatant, how brazen has corruption become? That a CEO is willing to sit in a public a restaurant and hand over a Christian Dior bag with 60,000 rand cash to a journalist, and still lie about it that she didn't have no idea why she was there, and the fact that when the money was taken out, counted in front of her. And have we become so brazen that because we feel that there's no repercussions for it? That's the issue. The issue is that
what gave rise to that? Because if you're telling a journalist, I want to meet you would have briefed the journalist, I'm going to give you 60K.
Yes, exactly.
So there was a trap.
And what are the reasons why she was so... There's 440 million or whatever, 840 million is the talk about the amount that was the corruption. But one of the issues she faced was that some of the money was being used to fund a residence for her in Waterfall Estate. It's crazy that the amounts of corruption within senior appointments in many of the institutions in the country.
So that's still the order of the day.
That's still the order. But look, there's been so many arrests that were made, but never.
So this is a scourge that's countrywide.
Until you get a significant uptick in terms of convictions, this will continue. You need to have your NPA needs to be strong, and the police force needs to be strong.
They're not capacitated. That's what that's what the head of the
problem
NPA
is
saying.
Within those institutions, whether it's the police force or the NPA and the like, there is a lot of rotten apples in there. That's unfortunate.
And bloated bureaucracy.
One is bloated, one is completely corrupt. And that's the issue. Until you get a complete change in many of the appointees and the changes there, and you get convictions. You need convictions.
So you're saying that these parties that are involved are battling to deal with these issues?
It's a tough road. Look,
so from a financial perspective,
you've had outside appointees from you've had in the GNU, you've had appointees, whether it's from the DA and the like, in certain positions. like Home Affairs, or you've had also in the infrastructure. Infrastructure, they're trying to make some progress, but it's still difficult.
Depending on how long they took that portfolio. Martin says he's just been there for a year and 2 months,
Right.
and he faced a lot of resistance, but he's
So-
putting pressure.
But it takes time. Similarly in Home Affairs, there's actually surprisingly certain, while there's challenges in many areas, but also says some modernization and improvement. Like, for example, now the banks will be able to, quite a few of the banks are being incorporated to do passports and IDs and stuff like that. Just during this
So
past
they're
week,
hoping to improve service delivery in
service
that
delivery,
regard.
key service delivery. Firstly, ensuring effective service delivery to the citizens of this country. Everybody's paying taxes, or many, whether you're paying rates and taxes, you're paying VAT and the like. And there's as we talked about previously, 15% or whatever are funding a big portion of the income tax in the country. But the fact is, we need to sort out service delivery effectively. Secondly, utilize the funds that are there effectively, not where for every 100 rand, 80 rand is being used through maladministration, corruption, this, that, and a bloated wage bill, and only 10-15% being utilized effectively in terms of infrastructure.
So that is a crux of the problem.
That's a crux. The problem is when you haven't, remember, Gauteng is a good example. Gauteng's population over the last 20 years has increased from 9 million to 16 million. That's a massive increase. 60-odd percent, 70% increase in a 20-year period. Have they accommodated in terms of the infrastructure, spent money on infrastructure to manage that influx in terms of people? No, they haven't. Joburg is in a disaster state. I mean, 24 billion it was talked about, where the Minister of Finance asked the Joburg mayor to explain how 24 billion was spent over a number of years in irregular expenditure. So it's in a disaster state because they didn't spend the money properly. They didn't spend it on necessary water infrastructure, roads infrastructure, rail infrastructure, not spent properly. Now you're sitting in a position with such a massive population that the things are there to make that province and the country flourish, but you can't do it unless you have the necessary tools to enable it. And to enable it, you need a functioning water system, a functioning electricity system, a functioning transport system. Once you have that, then that city can once again become the greatest, or the city of gold, as we always knew it was.
Lendy, I want to bring you in. You're hearing what our finance guru is saying here. Our listeners are listening, and they're saying that there's a huge problem and it's impacting on the financial resources of the country, the province, and the municipality big time, because more than 70% of the funds are being drained in corruption, maladministration. Then you got the foreigners, more than 20% who form the population here are paying no taxes, benefiting from the facilities. Nothing can be done. You, as a new party in the bloc, has emerged and says we're going to have to deal with these challenges, but you may become the minority going forward, as Sam mentioned, because your leader has got certain issues and you're going to have to play a role. So how do you foresee your party in particular, when it's formed, dealing with these huge challenges? Or are you just going to make noises and nothing's going to be done? What is your mission and vision in terms of dealing with the key issues? He's just highlighted that is the bottom line. If your finances are not managed appropriately, you're not going to have much impact on sort of service delivery in South Africa.
Yes.
Have you foresaw that, or do you regard that as one of the serious challenges going forward? And do you think you can make a difference?
Most serious. The issue of corruption is an issue that I think systematically nobody has dealt with globally. Maybe nobody wants to deal with it globally. And this is one of the work of the foundations of Krotoa as a foundation. When we looked at what is corruption where it's coming from. And because the foundation's work is very much in research, when we look deeper into the issue of corruption, firstly, our organization and I vouch that we want to be registered and have accreditation at specific organs within the United Nations. And one of those organs were the one that is concerning working with corruption, crime, and drugs, which is based in Geneva, Switzerland. When we came to do our research, we found that there is plus minus more than 5,000 NGOs and civic organizations registered at the United Nations globally, but only 123, if I'm correct, of very old organizations, NGOs that was formed 1945 when the United Nations was formed. Only a few 123 is actually accredited to work within the issues at the United Nations that works on the issues of corruption. What we then come to finalize on our findings is that corruption has been institutionalized at a global level, and there is no organization outside of the 123 very old organizations, very colonial-based organizations, that is working within the issues of corruption in a systematic way. Unless we as organizations, civic organizations, become part of the global processes to attack the issue of corruption, nothing is going to be happening, because currently corruption has been used as a tool to achieve certain objectives of certain individuals, certain countries, and certain organizations. So we as MKHWANAZI has identified within our consultation throughout 9 provinces that we need system change. And unless we look at what caused the system to be in this manner, we're just going to scrape at the top of what is happening. Corruption and where our money is currently has been used as tools within each government department to achieve certain objectives. We have to go to the bottom of that. And that is what MKHWANAZI is doing. MKHWANAZI is looking at system changes in everything that is the root cause of poverty within South Africa currently. And that is where we're going to find it. When we look at the issue of foreign nationals, more than 20% that you are saying that they're paying no taxes, for example, we also going to look at system there. Because we're looking at 20% of black foreigners, but we don't see the hundreds of thousands of foreigners that is coming into our country that are not black. And we've not looked properly at the issue of foreigners that is illegal in our country. So system changes is what we're looking at as MKHWANAZI. Nobody is doing that. And we will get to the root cause of some of these issues. When it comes to the issue of minority, yes, I am a minority. I am a so-called colored under the current laws of South Africa. But also, we as a colored community, because I don't identify as a colored anymore. I'm a Kham Kuna person. And we as a previously called colored community have been voting for the DA forever. We kept the DA in power.
In the Western Cape?
In the Western Cape, everywhere in South Africa. Without the vote of the colored people, there would have been no DA anywhere.
So you say the Western Cape will start changing now?
If the Western Cape needs to change, it means that the colored vote needs to be taken away from the DA in order for us.
So you think you're going to take the colored vote away?
The DA is taking our vote, then turn back to us to say that we as colored people in the Western Cape or anywhere else are not capable to become leaders within political parties. And because we don't become leaders in political parties because we are uneducated, we don't have the necessary skills, but it's the very same DA that is oppressing us.
So you're saying MKHWANAZI is going to change their approach to the coloreds?
MKHWANAZI is going to change that. We say let us as minority parties, as well as minority race groups, let us join in with MKHWANAZI. If there is any changes that is needed, if there's not proper representation, let us come and talk about it. But we can deal with it.
Now you have competition from the Patriotic Alliance because the leader there says he's getting the colored vote, he's going to increase.
Absolutely.
You're going to challenge him.
Absolutely.
Local government, you're going to change the terrain in the Western Cape.
Absolutely. We're saying, Gayton McKenzie, my father phoned me and said, Lindy, asseblief my kind, kan jy asseblief toch nie net daar vir Gayton McKenzie gaan join nie. Join Gayton McKenzie. Hy is 'n colored soos ons. En ek sê, Papa, just give me a chance. Right now, Gayton McKenzie is looking at business as usual for himself, just like the ANC has done, the EFF has done, and the MK has done. Gayton McKenzie has not turned his words. He said, I'm here for business. Gayton McKenzie is not here for the colored community.
Portfolio and enjoy
He said he wants to have any position and he needs to be in power because he needs to make money. Right now, the colored community is not his constituency. That is that his constituency that he's working for is whoever's going to give him power and money.
So you reckon finally, we're running out of time now, and I just want to conclude with Sam and Abdul, is that you're going to surprise the voters come municipal elections?
Absolutely, we're going to surprise. I said, let us join with my boy.
You're gonna shock. So you're telling the smaller parties, don't waste your time going.
Smaller parties, please come join us because we are going to take this vote.
Okay, Sam, I cut you off because Abdul wanted to come in. Abdul says he you said he couldn't put you under the bus, but you telling him that there's a role for smaller parties, or you saying smaller parties must respond to what Dr. Lendy is saying, that unite and form a stronger party that can take on the ANC, IFP, EFF, and MK. What's your take?
I've listened to Lendy and
Abdul.
And my friend Abdul there.
Hey, Dr. Lendy. Dr.
Lendy. No, don't teach me how to speak English. Let's get that clear.
We're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes.
Just quickly, let's just debunk.
Our community wants to hear how we're going to really deal with the aspirations they have, because they're hearing corruption, they're hearing maladministration. They keep on saying that we're singing the same tune, but there's nothing happening on the ground. At least Martin told him, I'm taking things head on. From your perspective, Lendy is saying, we need to come in and do something. You saying something else.
Tell us I'm not saying anything. Let me respond. Let me respond without any words in my mouth. One is I think Lendy must appreciate that the South African political landscape is not going to give them a majority.
Correct.
So as long as it's not going to give you the majority, because you're newbies on the block, and I'm sure Floyd will tell you the same thing, that you're going to have to coalesce with somebody to get power.
Like how the GNU.
Like how the GNU is going. So that when you talk about systems that need to be changed, etc., you need to.
You're going to have the power to.
You need to be practical.
Right.
That's the first issue. The second issue is, I've just did a calculation now. 1 out of 13 equates to 0.07 or 0.7%, right? We represent minorities. This radio station, primarily minorities. Kapsapint, which I've been on, is minorities. KC Pal, which I've been on, is minorities. I'm on Worcester Radio in the next few weeks, minorities. You're quite right about the composition of political space in the Western Cape. It's very much the same in KZN and Gauteng. What we're saying is, if my boy wants to have political power is drawn through grassroots, which is, whether you disagree or agree, which is colored, because that's what your ID says. And those of the Indian race. That's the first. That's the second issue. The third issue, I'm a political commentator, so I want to debunk some of this, and I cannot leave it, else I'll suffer from fatigue. I've never made an effort, Yunus, to join my buye. Abdul's talking nonsense, right? If you remember, I asked you for the hall. You gave me the hall. I got some guys in because we were looking at, in particular, minorities. They then decided when Floyd got fired, because Floyd got fired, they then decided from MK.
Yeah.
He got expelled or whatever, or suspended. Suspended is probably
As
the
an
right
SG or as a member?
As an SG, not as a member.
All right.
They then, the guys that we met here, decided they're going with Floyd. They phoned me to come and join them. I said no. Right? I got a phone call this morning. I still said no. Because
you joined them, phone call this morning.
Yeah, because this is my position. What is it in the interests of minorities? I'm not interested in black political parties for the sake of black political parties. I have to represent the constituency that I come from, which is the most marginalized. Right? And that's all I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with my buoy. It has a space within the landscape. And I think they'll do pretty well. I think they'll make an impact. But like I say, the space is crowded.
Will they make the same impact as MK? Or
No, definitely not.
Not even 50%?
No, definitely
not.
Not
even 20%?
Not even 20%.
Not even 10%?
Of MK, definitely not.
Not even 10%? Too.
Zuma is a draw. He's a draw card.
What I'm saying, not even 10%.
Of what? National vote?
Or provincial and local government?
No, not in KZN.
No, I'm talking about other provinces. She said Western Cape is
I think in Limpopo they'll do pretty well. I think in Gauteng they got a good space.
They've got a lot of leaders and they want to absorb the smaller parties.
My sister is colored.
People are listening in the
my
various
sister is colored like me.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you now that the ANC cannot even achieve 16% in the Western Cape. So I think Floyd will make an impact, but he certainly won't be a majority. In KZN, which is very much a
Zuma land.
Not Zuma land, it's very much a
MK land.
Ethnic vote, 75% Zulu. I think he'll make an impact because she's quite right. It'll draw a lot of the disgruntled MK people. But we wish them well. They must do well for the benefit of the country. We want Maibuya to succeed. Why? Because more good political expertise will change the political dynamic. And so there's a role for them to play. I don't have a problem with that. But the bottom line position, what is in it for minorities? And that's all I say.
Abdul, conclude. You're representing the minorities. You're a chair on ORA. You're a chair of UFP. I know you got the Palestinians at heart. But you're also mindful of the fact that those listeners that are listening to us in PM Burgum, Sinduzi, Kwaduguza, in all the provinces constitute a large number of minorities. They're not getting value for money in terms of the rates they're paying, the taxes they're paying, because they're paying an exorbitant amount of rates and taxes towards the fiscus. Do you believe that in local government elections going forward, those leaders in the different wards that are standing as popular candidates, they should link themselves with another political party, because the parties that are there have been cited with corruption and maladministration? Look for a home with a political party where, in addition to the minority support, they'll get the other support to win that ward. What's your take, Abdul? You got 5 minutes to wrap up.
Sure. I would say, just by judging today, consultation in Pietermaritzburg and, Msunduzi, quite an old, area. And we were actually surprised.
Which area in Pietermaritzburg you're in?
At the old prison, right? There's some communities that's living within the areas that's there, and minorities against them.
Is it colored Indians or?
No, there were some Indian people that actually came for this consultation. And, they stated that they've applied to the ANC, the DA, that took their votes and promised them many things. And, specifically they came with a question that they had issues, that there is mosque here, there's a mosque, there's churches, but they're looking for the temple and there's land available and they can't get a temple, and they're applying for years for this temple. And this came up into the consultation program today, just to try and understand a place of worship for minorities that's not available. So we are saying, if it comes with Maibuya itself, minorities have a seat here. It's a home, something that hasn't been done before. As far as local government is concerned, as far as national and local, consultations will be taking place with regards to all the VDs, all the wards. And minorities, if you represent minorities in that ward, bring your candidate forth. And that candidate, we will make sure from a national level that Lendy is here with me, they will be elected to become those ward councillors.
So
indefinitely.
You're telling our listeners that there are some political parties that can make a difference
100%
in local government elections.
100%.
Hassan, I want to bring you in to conclude now in the next few minutes. You've got people that invest their monies in banks as a safe haven in Sharia compliant funds. A lot of people are investing in, provident funds. And at this point in time, with the markets spiraling, those funds are doing well. What's your closing advice to the investors and the guys that are saving and having investments in pension funds?
Sure.
You're telling them to
are,
hang tight with what they have.
You gotta hang tight. You can't time markets. That's the nature. And especially if you're now in pension and retirement products, those tend to be long-term products. Those that are already retired, they're living off their living annuities. They just need to be careful in terms and cautious as to how they draw down rates and the like is. Markets have done pretty well. So all of those that are in market linked type of products would have done pretty well. The important thing is to ensure you have diversification, and diversification both from a asset class perspective, but also from a geographic perspective. And you'll find many of the Sharia compliant balanced funds that are out there give you both asset classes difference. For example, you got equities, a bit of income and property. At the same time, most of them now have in excess of 25, 30, and in certain cases slightly more as well, offshore exposure as well. So they're benefiting both from the...
So they're giving you a reasonable return.
They're giving you a reasonable... So they've done pretty well. And I think you've seen over the last 10 years, 15 years, the returns have been pretty decent for that. So I think just continue. Obviously, the older you're getting, and then you want to shift a little bit more in towards lower risk type of products, more income related. But if you're still anticipating, you're just still in your 50s and 60s, and you still got potentially another 20 odd years, then you want to be diversified and have a reasonable exposure to the equity markets as well.
Now, finally, in terms of your budgeting and your spending, how should you manage that? Because obviously, those that are pensioners are getting a limited income. Those that are working are investing in a pension fund, but they have to budget because obviously the cost of living is rising. And if you're going to take whatever savings you got and spend it and not save and bank for the rainy day, you got a problem. So what's your advice to those listeners?
As much as possible, if you can. I know it's very difficult for many people living hand to mouth these days because of the environment you're in. But as much as you can, if you can save between 10 to 20% of your salary and put it away, it helps in the long term. If you can do that. And, if you're fortunate enough to get a 13 check or a bonus come the end of the year, take a portion of that also and put it away. Yes, we must live, and we have to live. Unfortunately, it's very difficult, but I think it's important that you do save for a rainy day, especially in the times we live in. There are always a lot of different circumstances and the like that can happen, whether it's wars that are taking place globally could impact us, whether it's a disease like the COVID pandemic, and that impacted many people. And if you didn't have,
you had to dig into the savings.
You had to dig into your savings to go through that difficult period, because many people were unemployed or couldn't work for months on end and had a difficult period. So you have to keep portions of your income.
So you're telling them, budget, don't spend more than what you are earning.
Live within your means.
Right. We're coming close to the conclusion. We're 27 minutes over time because the discussion is very, very interesting. And Sam wants to just make a final comment, and then I'll sum up. Sam, please go for
A
it.
nice little joke. You know, politics is like you, Liverpool, and my colleague on that side, Manchester United. The question I've got to ask the two of you is, who's going to win the league? You're going to say Manchester United, you're going to say Liverpool, but guess what? We'll only know at the end of the last kick of the ball. Same in politics.
Yeah.
All the political
You're
parties.
asking an obvious question. So the guys told you, and your top commentators, including Alan Shearer, said that it'll be hard for Liverpool to lose the league. So understand that if they want to win the league, they'll win it easily. But I know Hassan is confident, but it's a bit of banter and a bit of fun. But at the end of the day, like a soccer side, the team wins the match. Now, the politicians that have political parties, depending on what they can offer and what difference they can make to people's lives, they will be trusted. Just to sum up and really conclude now, we've got 2-3 minutes left. It is abundantly clear that coming municipal elections, Abdul, when he was interacting with his people in the different wards, identifying leaders like you, Samuel, and others, have picked up the question from the leaders that which party do we join? We don't trust the ANC, we don't trust the EFF. We may or may not trust the DA because they were the opposition. They joined GNU and they're claiming credit for whatever. They're trying to fight corruption as far as possible. But now you got these new parties coming up in the block like Mayabuya and other parties. They are saying, we're going to challenge, and we think we are the home for those leaders that want somebody new in the block and objective, notwithstanding that you may have some leaders that were implicated there. But at the end of the day, there is opportunities for leaders to find political homes of parties that are new in the block that may make the change, but it's got to be parties that are going to get a decent support from the voters. So I want to take this opportunity of thanking my guests this evening, especially Minister Martin MEYER. In his busy schedule, he joined us live in the studio. He gave us some very valuable input. Samuel, you as usual, you created controversy. You asked some difficult questions. Abdul, you've tried to put Sam under the bus. He corrected you and said, listen, but Sam is obviously waiting for people to call him. He says, I'm available to be absorbed. Call me and tell me what you can offer, because it's natural. You can't call a leader and tell him, listen, there's nothing on offer for you. So to my message to our leaders in the different wards, identify yourself as a leader, get the work done, get service delivery on the ground, like what you've done, Abdul, and then you make yourself available as a leader, and then you identify which political party, even if there's new parties being formed, get the right people who people trust. So we're going to continue with these discussions in future meetings, ensuring that we educate our people out there. But ultimately, when you close your eyes, you're under the ground. And from an Islamic perspective, what do you take with you is your good actions. Now, the humanitarian need is out. It's absolutely necessary because of the high degree of unemployment. As Hassan pointed out, people are battling to make ends meet. And there's a lot of poverty out there. And those civic activists that go out on the ground, people are battling to put food on the table, let alone finding employment, because there's no employment. We as an organization, we're picking it up when we go to these different areas, when we have these feeding schemes, when we have these hamper drives. Today, Al-Ansar went to the disability school where they needed basic necessities. We were able to provide that support. This is what humanitarian activity is all about. So we are hoping that those that are going to serve our people in the different wards will understand the need of the people. But with that need, we have to turn to the Creator, and that's Almighty Allah, as we firmly believe. And there's a duty that we have to obey the commandments of Almighty Allah, as shown to us by our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We've got certain requirements in terms of our Sharia ruling and the Quran we follow. And we have to be leaders for the community. So Al-Ansar is an organization. Through our leadership, we've taken that leadership role to be available whenever there's a need out there. And we're not turning anybody away, whether it's on media, whether it's on aid out there. In whichever way and form there's a request, our job is not to turn people away. whatever little we can do, we will do, whether we make our halls available for civic activism, whether we allow people to articulate themselves in media, whether we go out on the field and physically distribute food, give hampers, give aids to human beings like what we've done this evening. That is the purpose. All NGOs and civic organizations have to play that role. And if we play that role, we will get the assistance of the Almighty. And those that are standing to become leaders in elections, they will get the support if they got the desire to serve the community. On that note, I want to close this evening's session. I want to thank our listeners out in Pietermaritzburg, in other areas, for listening to us attentively. We hope you had value from the show. We will continue to provide valuable information to you going forward. And as I mentioned previously, if you have any topic that you want us to discuss, we certainly will oblige and invite the experts and the necessary guests to discuss those topics. I want to thank our technician, Asif Pili, for having provided a magnificent technical support to us, and also the other members who supported us. Thank you once again to Samuel for always making himself available, adding value. Hassan Motala for joining us, as well as you, Abdul, and Dr. Lendy. I think you all provided, the doors are always open for you all to assist us. Until next Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Pleasure. So play that my normal.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Ansaar, keeping you informed.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ہو کرے صبر کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ یا کیسی بھلائی Ya Rasul Allah, Ya